What am I?
When I get them settled down. I'm going to call to order the regular school committee meeting of June 10th, 2009. Welcome, everyone. At this moment, Trish, Ms. O'Connell is not able to make it this evening, and Mr. Higgins is not present. So. Okay, our first item is approval of items by consensus. Superintendent Benton.
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Kane, I'm requesting that we withdraw item 3 under the consent agenda and present the 2 items separately. Approval of the regular minutes of May 27th, and then out-of-state field trip to Canada.
Excellent. All right. I would accept a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of May 27th, 2009. Not everyone was present that night, so that's why we're taking it separately for the new people. So would anyone make a motion to approve those minutes? Dr. Quick.
Motion to approve the minutes of May 27th, 2009 regular session.
Sorry, Dr. Quick, you were one of the absent people. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay,
I wasn't.
So moved.
Can they vote?
You can still vote.
Oh, okay.
You can still vote.
Okay.
Okay.
If you're
Okay,
absent
yeah.
and you've read the minutes.
Yeah, you can still vote.
Yeah, you can still
okay,
vote.
sorry.
That's
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Marchese, thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes? No. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous, Trish. And our second item is the out-of-state field trip to Canada from the high school. And what we have here is the award of the bid for the out-of-state field trip to Canada. And that would be to the vendor Visit Canada at the cost of $445 per person, which is a reduction in price, which is excellent salesmanship on someone's part. We're very pleased to see that. So the motion would be that Visit Canada be awarded the bid for the out-of-state field trip to Canada. Do we have a motion? Mrs. Duffy.
I'd like to make a motion that Visit Canada be awarded the high school bid for the field trip to Canada.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second, Dr. Quick. Any comments or questions on the trip? Mrs. Duffy.
Just thank you. It's nice. We just started kind of taking a better look at these field trips, and I think this is a good start, 25% reduction in the cost, and I hope they get a good turnout for the trip.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Okay. Mrs. Beckwith. Mrs. Beckwith.
I'd like to say that the trip is not only open to high school students, but we are now talking with the 8th grade students who will be coming into the high school next year. We have opened it to them, as well as siblings and parents of 8th grade students and high school students.
That's very nice. I've never been to Canada. We can open it to me, too. It sounds wonderful. Good for you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Beckwith.
You're welcome.
Great. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, Trish. Good, thank you.
I apologize. I left the student report off the agenda thinking that Kellen was not going to start till the fall, but Kellen is here, so could we add that to the agenda?
Yes, Kellen Campbell is our new student reporter from the high school, and we're very pleased to have her. And Kellen even came this year for us, and so I'm sure we're going to have great reports next year. So, Kellen.
Just as a quick wrap-up for the year, as the year comes to a close at the high school, all of the senior events were a success, such as the lock-in, cookout, scholarship and awards night, and the graduation this past Sunday. We had a beautiful day for graduation, which was out on the football field this year thanks to the good weather. This spring, we had several teams qualify for the state tournament, including the girls' tennis team, the softball team, and the baseball team. And the softball team made it as far as the quarterfinals this year. Also, several members of the track team qualified for the state meet, and some went on to run in the all-state meet. All of the clubs are holding their final meetings, and many have elected new officers for next year to replace the seniors that have graduated. This past Monday night, the band awards night and reception were held in the high school cafeteria and auditorium. And on Friday night, Wilmington's Rotary Club will be holding a town-wide trivia night. The Rotary Interact Club from the high school has its own team to represent it among other town groups and teams. Also, today was the first day of finals at the high school, which will end on Monday. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions? No? Thank you, Kellen, that
Thank
was
you.
great. And feel free when you're ready to go study for your final. That would be great. Oh, you're so right. I know it. Okay, our next item, under Superintendent's Report, we have a personnel update.
Yes, sad to say, had accepted resignation of middle school math teacher Kristen Thomas, who coaches in Burlington, and they were smart enough to offer her a job. That's why we try and hire use the coaches as positions as an incentive for teachers. We are doing two transfers. Abby Kachen-Burris is going to be going from the west to the kindergarten at Boutwell, and Marion Putster is going to be transferring to the additional kindergarten we're adding at the Wildwood due to enrollment. Also thrilled this evening to appoint Lisa Ippolito as the Elementary Technology Integration Specialist for the system for next year. This is a pilot program, and we're excited that Lisa was willing to do it. She has been a wonderful addition to the Technology Task Force this year. She's tried all kinds of new technologies, and I think she'll be a wonderful person in this position. So we'll be reporting back in the fall.
And just so people know, she's going to help the teachers with their own curriculum integrate, so she'll be going into the individual classroom.
That's correct, yeah. Same model as elementary math specialist position. We're excited. Well, we're able to do this with the stimulus funds that we're getting this year.
Great, thank you.
In your packet is a memo from Dr. McGinn describing some of the professional development activities for this summer. Contrary to what some believe, teachers do not take summer vacations, but participate in all kinds of wonderful professional development, or are off teaching at summer school or at College Gate or taking courses. So wanted to let you know what was being offered.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on that? Mr. Marchese?
I just had a question. Is there a cost to the teachers for this program? No?
No, these are all provided.
Okay, no, I'm just curious. No, that's good. Okay, that's good.
And I think the other thing to note is that with only one or two exceptions, the presenters are Wilmington educators. That's fantastic that we do that. Yeah, thank you.
Next thing on the agenda is an update on the middle school schedule. As you know, after a year of trial of the new schedule, Ms. Miniman conducted a survey of teachers and parents and students to come up with some recommendations on moving forward next year, because as always, we need to, things aren't always 100%. And she included the survey results and recommendations. We definitely understand the need for a homeroom. And my understanding, it will be at the first thing every day, which is good consistency for students, and that allows us to bring back the TV studio program, because the students use that period to put on their the news of middle school. Ms. McMiniman is here if anybody has any questions about the schedule. Yes, he does.
Ms. McMiniman, please. Thank you. Ms. DeVille.
Is this type of schedule used anywhere else? Sort of 49-minute class periods and pick up a minute here?
Unfortunately, when time and learning came to be, and we're trying to squeeze in as much as possible, I think if you look at middle school schedules across Massachusetts, you will see some schedules with 47 minutes, 62 minutes. It actually is that way.
75 minutes, it depends on the block. We were fortunate to go to the 50 minutes this past year. We realized the need for a homeroom, so we're just scaling back a little. The teachers did notice a difference in their curriculum on what they were able to cover throughout the whole year with the additional minutes. So we're hoping that bumping back just the 1 minute, that they can still really keep up with the curriculum and the demands of what needs to be covered for each grade level. It is a bit odd. You know, I think that...
I'm asking.
It is. We have a rotating schedule. The high school has a 7-day schedule. We have a 6-day rotating schedule, so we really don't participate in the real world much. We have day 1, day 2, day 3, while everybody else is on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And when you say to a colleague, what time do you eat lunch? 11. And so it makes sense to those of us who are in the field with the bell schedules that go on the different minutes. So it is pretty consistent in the area.
And I suppose you looked at it, but I guess when you did this, it made sense to take a minute from 7 periods as opposed to just unevenly distribute it.
Correct. That was one of the other things mentioned by staff members and parents in the surveys, that they liked the consistency with the number of minutes, that it was even for each period, and that the teachers could count on that going into the period, and that the kids could count on that as well.
Dr. Quick?
When I was reading through the handbook, and now that I'm a little more adept at the school committee, I noticed that they were talking about the gym. It used to be that gym was every 25 days? Is that how they used to have it? And they had...
It was a little bit different. The rotations were different. Now we have gym every other day for the whole school year. Previously, there were 7 different rotations throughout the school year of 26 days. And 8th graders had phys ed for 3 of those rotations out of the 7. And it just depended when those rotations came up throughout the year.
So now,
6th and 7th had 4.
So now it's going to be a more stabilized every other day. I think that's much better.
It's pretty consistent activity for very active middle schoolers.
Yeah, I think that's very important.
Could I ask, how many hours are we supposed to have in the middle school? I know it's 990, is it 990 for the middle school?
990 for secondary, typically, and usually middle schools can identify either as elementary or secondary, and we are well over our 900 minutes that we identify with.
The school committee identified elementary
Elementary.
many years ago.
So then I have a question. We don't have minutes in between periods here?
Right,
Or
they're
did I
not
lose it?
identified. However, if you took out the 2 minutes passing time in between each period, even with the early release days, even with our CIT days, even delays of snow, we still are well over our 900 minutes.
Oh, so what I'm getting at, though, is the actual minutes between, so people know there's basically 2 minutes, the teachers know, because I understand some of the 6th graders have to go up to the 3rd floor,
For
and they have to
art
come
or-
back
yeah.
from the 3rd floor down?
What we've designed is we've allowed each individual team, and sometimes at the grade level they do it, to organize a routine locker schedule that makes sense for their hallway. If kids are going off to gym or off to a special, to give them that time to gather their things or to put them away before they go up 2 flights of stairs. So each team designs it for what makes sense for their lunch period, what makes it for their off-team periods of when they're going off to different areas in the building.
Yeah, I think that's good. That works out. So nice. I'm, for one, glad that we're going back, because I was really concerned about the use of the TV studio, and I have been. So I'm glad that when we see something doesn't quite work, that, that we can adjust. And so I congratulate you on that. I think that's good. Mrs. Benton.
And I also want to congratulate Principal McMiniman on, it was coming in last year to have to put together a new schedule because the committee work had been done, but she didn't own it, and it took a lot of time and effort. To see the positive comments from everyone really should make you feel terrific. You did a great job with it, and I'm just so thrilled that it's a more consistent schedule.
And I was pleased with how easily the teachers and the students adjusted. You know, after a month, it's almost like, what did we do before? They are the most resilient group, so the kids, and they did very well
Great.
transitioning.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You might have to come back again.
I know.
To handbooks. Sorry. Thank you.
Next, in the superintendent's report, I just enclosed the full-day kindergarten grant. The state had, although we will have 14 kindergartens next year, the state had put a freeze on the amount of classes. We could only apply for the number of kindergartens we had this past year. We were just informed last week that there's a possibility of a 10% decrease in the grant. But Mr. Ruggiero and I had planned for that. We knew there was going to be a little bit of a reduction. And again, it's actually in Dr. McGinn's curriculum cycle report, but if you look at the section on the full-day kindergarten, the incredible positive feedback, I have to tell you, there's not been one negative from anyone on full-day kindergarten. People really are enjoying it, and it's fun to talk to the first grade teachers this time of year because they see the difference in their students who completed full-day last year. So,
Mr. Marchese?
Yeah, just a quick question, I'm sorry, Superintendent Bennett, you mentioned that this grant is already including the FY10 budget, so you already accounted for it?
yes.
Okay, all right, no, that's fine, okay. All right, can I just follow up real quick, sorry.
No, don't say sorry, whatever, whatever.
Was there a contingency put in place, say, if the grant didn't come through?
There were two contingencies. We knew that we were, the stimulus grant, we were going to get a stimulus grant piece, but if all else failed, parents knew that if the grant was not here, we'd have to go back to half-day kindergarten.
Okay, no, excellent.
No, good question.
I'd just like to mention a couple of things on here. First of all, if you read through the grant, and I would suggest that anyone who wants to know how we're starting our students out reads through this grant, it's fascinating as to all the aspects. You just think they're kindergarten, what could be, there, but it talks about the accomplishments and the activities and the plans, and it's really a superb grant. But more so, it tells us exactly what the little kindergarten kids are doing. So anyone who wants to know, or any kindergarten parent, if you have this is at the Roman House, I'm sure you could read this grant and you'd know what your child did this year. It's an excellent grant. And the second thing was that we're making a formal commitment to pursue NAEYC accreditation. And I have to say congratulations. We've only had this for 2 years, and we're in such a state that we can do that. I think that's fantastic.
I applaud the teachers of both schools that they're willing to go forward with it next year, so.
Well, that's excellent. Mrs. Duffy?
So how did that come about? Because that's a very strenuous process, and so, I mean, that's embedded in there.
It is a requirement of the grant.
Okay, so they give you the first year to...
They give you the first year to sort of get your feet wet, and
because then there's a lot of
the head teachers
documentation.
and I have been to quite a few meetings on it. It is a big undertaking.
Yeah.
I left it up to them.
I'm just thinking there's a lot of young teachers as well in the kindergarten, so for them, it's going to be challenging.
We'll be able to we're actually going to bring in, as a consultant who's had this experience before, former assistant principal at Shawsheen, Bunny
Bunny Kelly?
DeSano, who will lead them through it.
Oh, very good.
And the grant we have another grant that's going to cover that cost.
Great. Well, that will encompass a lot of their professional development for them as well.
Yes, it is a rigorous process, as rigorous as the high school one. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Quick?
I have just a couple of questions about when I was reading through the grant. Can you expand upon the question on, I'm not sure the page number. It's Grant Priority Assessment 1B and Part 3, where it says what challenges were encountered in implementing ongoing assessment, and you talked about, it says, with the implementation of the district-wide mathematics assessment, there have been some inconsistencies in the materials used, as well as the way some of the questions were presented. Could you just expand upon that?
The assessment at the kindergarten level is something newer to us than at the 1st through 12th grade level. I've been working with Terry Buscemi because there was a change in leadership in the mathematics department at the elementary level. Teachers were using an assessment tool for kindergarten that they weren't comfortable with. That was here before Terry Buscemi got here. We now have a new tool that the kindergarten teachers work with Terry on this year. So what we're going to see, I think we're going to see changes coming forward. So that
between the two?
That was the challenge.
Okay. And then I just want to make a comment about about where you mentioned about having the visiting days for the kindergarten students. I was just telling Mrs. Benton before, I think it's wonderful that the kindergarten students go to visit the first grade. I know that, it's hard enough starting kindergarten and then go straight from kindergarten on to a brand-new school again. And I think that it's tremendous how, with my daughter's teacher, they said, I'm going to be there the first day they start first grade. I think that's just very important for that transition. They already started one transition, and now they're going to make another one, and I think that's really important. So I really I commend that whole process.
Since Dr. Quick brought that up, I just need for you to know that the state actually, we got recognition for that model of our transition. They were very, very impressed with how it is done, with the teachers, kindergarten teachers greeting the students, first graders off the bus, so I'm glad you,
That's great. That's it. Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Great. Thank you, Mrs. Benton.
And lastly, we have been invited to join the Middlesex League. The MIAA has been involved in a discussion over the past 2 years about changing the composition of the Middlesex League. It's something that has been in the works for a couple of years. We have been invited to join along with Arlington. This will not happen for 2 years. We need to now negotiate with the Middlesex League to make sure that, for example, we can still continue our Tewksbury Wilmington rivalry football game, because that's where we make the most money, and a few other things. But I will say that there were 4 other communities that applied and did not get accepted, and who are very disappointed. So I congratulate the athletic department.
Mr. Tracy's here. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Mr. Marchese?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I was originally from Stoneham, so for us to go to the Middlesex League is going to bring some deep emotions back. It's a great league. It's a very highly competitive league, so I can say for us to be able to join the Middlesex League, I think it's great for Wilmington. Not to say that the Cape Ann League is anything wrong with that, but Middlesex is phenomenal. They have great teams, and for me to go back to Middlesex League as a Wilmington person now, it's going to be interesting going to face Stoneham. So I'm looking forward to it.
And I forgot to mention, I mean, there are a couple of reasons for doing this. If you recall, our budget for athletics, transportation budget, every year is bigger and bigger and bigger, because the costs go up, and it costs so much to pay for the buses because of the distance we're playing. Secondly, we don't get the spectators from a lot of the communities because it's too far to come. So I think that when this goes into place, you will definitely see a reduction in the athletic budget. So, which we had challenged Mr. Harrison and Mr. Tracy to come up with ways of reducing the athletic budget, and they're looking at all different ways. I commend them.
That's great. Mrs. Duffy?
Maybe just a question that Mr. Tracy could clarify for other viewers, that the district is going to Middlesex. Middlesex is going to have an A and a B, basically, a larger group and a smaller group, and we'd be part of that smaller group, which would be the communities. You know the names of the communities that we'd be playing?
They haven't determined all of them yet. We're supposed to meet with them to negotiate.
I just saw some of them on the website.
Yeah,
That's
some
why
of
I
them
thought
are.
maybe you knew
Some of them are listed, but they're still the teams that are in the middle. It's based on school size. We still have to sit with the Middlesex League group and determine how best to put those together.
Okay.
Some of the teams in the overall league range from about 800 students up to 1,200 students, and they'll divide it 6 and 6. It's the ones in the middle, I think, that are going to get complicated. We would end up in the small league because our size is under 1,000, and there are 6 schools that are well over 1,000. But we still have those middle teams to negotiate a little bit.
Okay, good. And there'll still be a few non-league matches as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, but that's great. The travel, I mean, that's the big thing, going to Ipswich and Newburyport, like you said, if the fans can't, that's a lot to travel. So the fan size has been down for some of those attendance. So that'll be really nice for the students who are participating, because then they'll be able to say to their friends to come to the match, because it's only a few towns away, which will be much better. Thank you. Yeah, it's a good, really good concept. I'm hopeful.
Mr. Marchese?
Mr. Tracy, it's my understanding that whether it's small, whatever league that we're in, that all the teams will play each other at some point, that the larger league will play all the teams in the small league, that there'll be crossing games, and then at some point, again, I know it's all interim right now, that at some point there'll be 2 championships set up and for each league, and then those 2 champions will eventually play each other, so it'll be almost like a tournament. So there should be more competition.
Right, and they haven't laid out exactly how that will happen, but there is crossover, there's mandatory crossover in that type of a league setup, and once we're able to sit with them and discuss how those pieces will fall into place, there still has to be some decisions based on how a team is determined to play another team in the large league or the small league, so there's some competitive and strength of team that has to be weighed in that formula too. So again, that'll all come out, I think, in the next year, over the next school year, in preparation for 2011, September 2011.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
One last final question, sorry. In terms of when they tear them, say if this was to go to the state championship, how does that being tiered in the lower league, small league versus the large league, how does that affect the division championships and the state championships? Has that been determined?
It hasn't been determined yet, but in other leagues, they basically will look at them by division. If you're in Division I, Division II, or Division III, your teams compete at that division level and stay at that division level.
Okay.
Based on location in the state.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Okay, that's good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Stay right there. Stay right there.
There we go.
Handbooks.
Thank you. Next one. All right. Old business, we're on to no old business, we're on to new business, high school handbook. Right. Mrs. Benton.
We could acknowledge Mr. Tracy. I believe the
Mr.
only
Tracy.
changes this year is the addition of the policy on the dog sniffing and changing dates. I forgot the name of it. Dog search. Sorry. I don't know where that came from.
That was good.
It's been a long day, yeah. And dates. Is that correct, Mr. Tracy?
That is the one major change I would describe as a major change. And I apologize, I don't have the copy in red, but you have copies, I believe, that all changes are made in red.
Yes.
And there have been some alignments and requested, like I've inserted, last year we went to the community service piece after we had put together the handbook. So I added that back in. We basically updated some of the dates, some of the years, went through and added the use of dogs to search school property policy as it was newly added during this, I think it was in May, I believe it was in May by the school committee. And we did add some alignment to, there was a misalignment with our plagiarism policy and our National Honor Society policy, so we made them the same. There was some confusion between the staff how to respond to kids who may have plagiarized or been caught cheating, so we aligned those based on the plagiarism and cheating policy that was approved again last year by this committee. And then excuse me, little additional language about text messaging. We are having a brutal time with cell phones and text messaging during tests, and this year, we've tried to move a little bit closer to the Department of Education's requirement during MCAS that no cell phones are allowed in the room. It's been a difficult battle, so we added on page 20 a little bit language just to start that about text messaging parents to get dismissed. Rather than going to our nurse, kids will text their parents and say, I don't feel good, come get me, and the parents just suddenly show up. We require that the kids go to the nurse and are determined to be sick enough to go home before that happens, but it's tough to stop them once the parent's standing on your doorstep. So we want to start to make that transition. Again, it's the same thing with items dropped off. We end up with a pile of items and chasing kids around, so we just really want to start to deal with that. This will probably be step one.
Yeah, I just want to pipe in here because this is a tough topic, and it's frustrating because, as you know, we had an incident at the high school this year, and we had the team. Crisis team had thought we had planned everything well in that we were doing an early dismissal. We were sent a message home, and we're going to get the students out of the building quickly. Well, the reverse happened. Parents were texting students, telling them what was going on, which really I had never anticipated it and didn't really appreciate because it didn't help the situation. We thought we were doing with the police and fire chief a protocol that was going to make everybody happy, and never ever thought of that piece. So we have been talking about how we're going to deal with cell phones in the schools because it can be an issue. Interesting enough, it's quite a topic on the superintendent's bulletin board. People are looking to see what schools are eliminating them totally because it's really between, unfortunately, cheating and these kinds of situations, it's becoming a real issue. So I think we really need to look at it.
And I think now, at this point, it's the parents who need the education. It's the parents who, anyone I've talked to about it, it's been the parents who've been adamant, oh, they need their cell phone. Like, they don't need their cell phone. And I think there's got to be some way to educate the parents that it's just not helpful. But I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle. I even talk to the kindergarten parents at the bus stop, and they're like, oh, my child will have a cell phone. Oh, my gosh. It's...
And I know, that, like, for example, today, we all heard what happened in Washington, D.C., and, I'm pushing to have the 8th graders go to Washington. But the good news about the cell phones on that trip is kids were able to get instant messages to parents that everybody was safe that were visiting the Holocaust Museum. So I think there is a place for cell phones, like, for example, when you're on a trip, but in the classroom, I think we need to think about alternatives because it's unfortunate that we are, I guess I'm concerned about the students' use of the text messaging in the classroom.
Absolutely. Yes, Mr. Tracy.
You'll see over this next school year, as a staff, we need to address it because in many cases, we're finding that it's an addiction with these kids. They cannot let it go. They can't let it out of their hands. They can't let their hand off of it. Their hand's in their pocket during an entire class. Teachers are seeing kids hiding them up their sleeves because they can't let that go and they can't break away from that. There could be someone they're communicating with outside of school, inside of school, but we're seeing it more during tests. Department of Education has taken the step that if a student takes a cell phone out during the test, they get a 0. The test is taken away and nullified. That is a real issue here. I mean, that's something that has happened, and just today during one of the exams, we had a student with a cell phone out texting during the exam. So it's fast becoming a major headache for teachers. And again, it is education, and it's difficult because the age we're in, everything's got to go 100,000 miles an hour for people to be interested. And with the change of the phone, the technology increase of just an iPhone or a touch iPod is unbelievable what you can do with it. And it's one of those things where I personally get stuck as a gadget guy saying I would love to use these things in my classroom or on a day-to-day basis with kids because they're really powerful tools, but it's education all the way around. We need to educate kids on the right way, the teachers on the right ways, and the parents on some of the restrictions that would help us during the school day. So.
Excellent. Yes, Mr. Bill.
In listening to the discussion, I was thinking that there's a balance here between clearly rights to have this stuff, but you can't have a right without a corresponding responsibility. So I checked on the list and it says student responsibilities, and it says electronic devices. So unauthorized use of electronic devices, including but not limited to cell phones, and on, during school time is prohibited in all grades. If a device is visible, then it's considered in use. Anyone violating this regulation will have his or her electronic device confiscated until their parents can arrange to pick it up. Is there some problem with enforcing this as written?
It's the confiscation that there's a real problem with. We are battling with parents who say that it belongs to them, it's their personal property, we can't keep it.
Well, it says confiscated until their parents can arrange to pick it up. If it's the parents' property, then we'll keep it in
The issue is more at
store.
the classroom level. If you have a classroom of 20 students and a cell phone's out, you can waste an entire class fighting with a kid, trying to get a cell phone away from them, trying to get them to put the cell phone away, shut it off, hand it over to the teacher. We've had kids swear at teachers, "You're not taking my cell phone," take batteries out of the cell phones before they hand them over. It is, I said, that device is a lifeline for a lot of these kids, and that addiction that I talked about a little earlier causes them to get into almost a rage when you want to take that cell phone away. There's no line to be drawn, and we take about a dozen a day, sometimes more. Put them, we have them in the office and call parents and log them in our computers and give kids consequences and community service, and that same kid will come back the next day with the phone and have it out again. Go ahead.
And the parent, and when that does happen, I believe the parent does get notified, and the parents are given, I just want to know what your gist on the situation is.
It's about 50-50. Many of the parents will say, okay, this will never happen again, and they're pretty cooperative and helpful, and then you have another group that does not like us taking it away, doesn't feel we should take it away, and feels like, they have to go out of their way because they have to come pick it up. They get pretty upset about that, but.
It's the third
Mrs.
offense.
Benton?
Yes. Yep. The third offense, if you look in our handbook on page 34 right now, the third offense is confiscate it and keep it. That's quite a battle. Our rule is take it, put it in a yellow envelope, seal it, student's name and everything on it, put it in the safe, and I've had some interesting conversations with parents over that, and certainly I understand it, but there has to be a line that we draw to say, listen, you've got to control this device with your son or daughter.
Well, clearly we're in partnership with the parents on this. I mean, we need to have a more effective relationship with them.
We're hoping we're in partnership with them, Mr. Vail.
Yeah.
I know, it doesn't always happen.
I equate it with, you have your license taken away. Well, that's the rule. I mean, this is the rule. We would hope that people would be following it, but unfortunately, it's become a battle. So I'm going to actually, this is on my list for the policy subcommittee, about looking at different districts to see if we can find something that will help support what's going on in the classroom, because teachers are battling this every day.
Yeah, and some
Yes, Mrs.
consistent
Duffy?
practice, I'm sure Mr. Tracy's talking now, the principals to find, it's very complicated and very new, some consistent practices that will not put a teacher at odds with the, this is what all of us are doing, and I think it's hard when you're, that one teacher who has to always be the one finding the kid with it or whatever. So I think finding something that's easy enough for every teacher to do as a consistent practice is going to be challenging, because like you said, it's very addictive tool to many kids today, and as a parent, I do feel my daughters need them at the end of the day for calling us for pickup, whether they're staying after for something, and that kind of thing is what we try to use it for. So I think that I wouldn't say they necessarily don't need one. I need to be able to communicate with her at the end of the day. But I definitely agree with you. There needs to be some kind of balance, because it's not necessary to have that out within your classroom when you should be focusing on the academics at that time. Yeah.
Dr. Quick?
I just want to make a comment to what you were saying, Mrs. Duffy, and the fact of it's one of those cases of what did you do before we had this? What did you do? I used to use payphones. You know what I mean? It's
They're not around anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, but
They're not there
I'm just saying
anymore.
that my point is that if the response, if kids and parents cannot take the responsibilities, then my personal opinion is that maybe we should look at policies that make it, like you said, look around to see what there is, but if you try to give an inch, they take a mile. If that's the case and they can't be responsible enough, then maybe the repercussions need to be deeper.
when does the, since I'm on the policy committee, when does the policy committee meet, or is there a meeting called, or?
I'm going to be calling it. I have had a very busy 2 weeks, so that's why you haven't heard from me. As soon as
No,
our
I
school
mean,
closes.
it's not like this problem just came up today, you know.
We have a list. We've got like 3 items we're going to start talking about, Mr. Vail,
Okay.
and as soon as the school year ends, then we'll
As soon as
start.
Monday's over
Get
with.
together.
Great.
Does anyone have any more questions on the high school handbook?
Since we are on
Excellent,
paperless, I'll bring it back for the next meeting for, approval. We don't need to vote on it tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Duffy.
Mrs. Duffy?
No, we've been working on this since you've been here, Mr. Tracy, and I remember we started out in the original one that Mr. Tracy brought forward, which wasn't his document. The original one was from the principal prior to him, and then every year, so it started out with something like 12 pages of red ink, and then we slowly worked our way down, so I think he's surprised to see that Mrs. Duffy doesn't have any question on this one this year. He's sitting there saying it's about time, because this is, I usually have at least, a couple of things here, but this is, it's nice that it's whittled down and weeded out, and we've got it to what we really need, and just adding a couple of the policies that I think is very nice indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Marchese.
Mr. Tracy, do all the kids in the high school get this? Does this get distributed to everybody?
What we do at the high school, and I believe the middle school does the same thing, in our effort to go green, we post it on our website, and we have, at the back of this handbook, there are several signature sheets, and that's essentially all we give to the kids. When we talk with parents, we tell them about it, we post it, that it's available. It's one of those, when we get those forms to them on the first and second days of school, I meet with all of the kids over the first 2 days of school, give them the forms, tell them where it's located, and then once we start meeting with the parents on a night like our open house, which happens in the second week of school, same thing, talk about the handbook, make sure that the signature sheets are in, and the signature sheets work because they need them to get to dances and to do certain things, so if all those items are in, they get to kind of move on in the next step, and it works out really well. We usually get every single one of them, so.
Right.
Mrs. Benton?
And I just want to point out for the new school committee members, we have reduced our printing budget by $10,000 by not publishing all the handbooks for all the students. It's a huge savings besides being good for the environment.
Excellent. Oh, Mrs. Duffy?
And this is the first year with the cameras on the buses policy for signature, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the only, that's new for parents at the,
Oh, I'm sorry, no, we did it this year.
did we did this year?
Yes, we did.
That was it.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember, I thought we started in the middle of the year, okay.
Yeah, that was a year ago.
Oh,
and then
okay.
we
No,
did-
you know
Yeah, it was
what,
in-
last year, we did it in the spring for one school.
Oh, okay,
That's,
Yeah.
all right,
And this
that's
year
what
did
it
for
is.
everybody.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy.
to acknowledge
Yes,
Ms.
Ms.
McMiniman.
McMiniman. And this would be the middle school handbook. Mrs. Benton.
And I want to acknowledge Terry Sheehan, who put together the cover sheet and worked with Ms. McMiniman before she took off on the 8th grade trip, and he has listed all of the changes. I don't know if there's anything you would like to highlight.
No, we have a little bit more red, and that is because we did incorporate our core values, what we came before you just a few weeks ago, and we wanted to put that in. We have a couple of updates of staff, but we're still staffing at this time. And other changes besides the search policy with regard to the dogs, others are pretty minor changes with language, clarifications, making sure that items are aligned with school committee policy. As we begin to study and read this book, and this is my second year here, and with Mr. Sheehan's assistance, we come up with a few inconsistencies, and you want to have everything in line. So we really try to study it and get in there and look at all the language.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Marchese?
No, just a quick comment. When I was in middle school and high school, I don't remember having a handbook. If I did, I never read it. But I can just say, just flipping through the high school one and the middle school one, especially the middle school, I can't believe how thick it is for middle school. I'm thoroughly impressed, and I can't believe it. I think both of you, the high school and middle school have done a phenomenal job, so. Thank you. Yeah, great work.
I just had a couple of things. When I went online earlier this year, either the high school or the middle school, one of the two, the pages aren't numbered. So I wanted to Xerox something off, and I couldn't, I had to go back and count them all. So I think it's the middle school one
Okay.
that has the pages not numbered online.
Online.
So that, yeah, so if we could put that, because the other one, they were numbered.
Okay.
That's really helpful if you're looking for one particular page or
Right.
one. And so,
When you're indexing,
Yeah.
and we probably still will have to align the index when it falls, when we're where we are. We want to make sure the pages are accurate.
yes, yeah, that's hard. And then on page 41, I just had two things. The wording on page 41, either I'm not reading this right, or there's a word or two missing. Under inappropriate behavior, the second sentence, students are expected and required to teachers and
Oh, there's a word missing.
To obey or to follow.
Right, that must be in
Okay.
follow instructions. Follow instructions seem to be twice.
So
I
that's a
wasn't
typo,
sure.
yep.
And then on page 43, I just want to ask you, it says possible referral to START program. What is that, START program?
We have a START program that started probably close to 3 or 4 years ago, at least. And it's something that happens around the Middlesex County area with the assistance of the District Attorney's Office. And it's basically a team that comes together for attendance and truancy reduction.
Oh, okay.
And so there's usually a member from DCF, Department of Children and Families. There's usually a member from probation, from the juvenile court. There's usually an administrator from the school. Sometimes it's a teacher or a guidance counselor or perhaps a social worker, and usually the school resource officer. So basically, if there is something going on that we think needs to be addressed and some of the tardiness in the attendance has not been fixed, we would invite a family to come into the START team and say, what type of resources can we offer you to help fix this issue and get your child to school on time every day? And it's a good group, and it does impact a lot of families, and sometimes it might be an issue of counseling, sometimes it's an issue of support for the parent, and to really have meat behind the parent if the child is not behaving. So it really works out, and it makes a nice relationship with all the agencies, and you really have a network that you can go to for support.
Oh, excellent. And I think that's more of an issue in the middle school. I think you have it pretty much weeded out by the high school. It's not as much of an issue. Maybe. I don't know. Mrs. Duffy?
Well, I just want to say, we had about 4 years ago, a couple of people come in and speak to us who run the START program from the DCF and from the probation, and maybe that's something. It'd be nice to start the year off in the fall just as another communication to parents. We haven't had them in a while. The group came here and spoke to us about, how they work with the middle school and how we work with our high school program as well. The two programs that we have for working on this tardiness issue. So they came in, and it was very nice to see how those departments work together, how the agencies work to help in the community, and so that might be something nice to start off at one of our meetings in the fall if they have the time.
And I would like to just quickly recognize Mrs. Monique Grealick. She is the assistant principal that ran the START program this year and got to know many of the different people on the boards and on the agencies. And they are a resource to us all year long, not just at the monthly meeting. They're a phone call away, an email away if we have a particular question or need for a family.
Nice, thank you. Anyone else have, Mr. Vail?
Very, very minor comment, and but as far as pagination goes, on page 39, it talks about Wilmington dress code and refers to page 51, but the dress code is on 56.
Right. We'll align that when we go online and we go live.
Anyone else? Great, Ms. McMiniman. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for your time.
Next is our curriculum review, update, and textbook recommendations. As you recall, back in December when we were preparing the budget and the state of the affairs with the state and federal budget, it didn't look like we would be moving forward with any kind of textbook adoption. And then with the shift in the stimulus grants and the availability to Wilmington of some extra funding because we weren't at the Chapter 70 funding, amount, we will have a grant coming forward, and we are recommending the purchase of textbooks, which always makes it easy to get the curriculum CTLs out if they know that they're going to get a curriculum for their department. So we have three departments represented this evening: foreign language, social studies, and science. And maybe Dr. McGinn can just go over briefly what the recommendations are.
I could just use Superintendent Benton's segue. Over on the far right in the navy blue blazer is Brian Carr, Curriculum Team Leader for Social Studies. And two people to his right, Mrs. Joyce Beckwith, the Foreign Language Curriculum Team Leader. And then to her immediate right, Mr. James Megacy, the Curriculum Team Leader for Science. So what you have, as you can see, the textbook adoptions for high school science, high school and middle school foreign language, and middle school geography. The materials to be adopted are on the counter. We'll certainly leave them there overnight so that as you exit, you can stop and take a look and see what the actual purchases will be. Then underneath the cover memo, there's an explanation provided by the CTLs on why we're making the purchases at the time and the prices that they've negotiated with those publishers. I believe they're prepared to respond to any questions that you might have at this time.
Anyone have any questions? I do have, Mr. Vail.
I have a couple of just thoughts and questions about the whole concept of textbooks. I mean, it seems to me the way things are going with open source software and computers and everything else, and wikis and collaboratively derived material, that we should be moving to open source, online, free textbooks.
I like that.
And that can be constantly updated from year to year. And I mean, there must be, not that I've looked, but I would assume that there are people doing this, and that they are available for more and more subjects of very good quality all the time. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would be surprised if I'm wrong.
I don't know who can answer that.
It's an interesting question. I mean, we do have CDs, DVDs for kids. Textbooks are on, so that they're not carrying textbooks home. But, as California and Texas go, so goes the nation as far as textbooks. It's a very big
That was a segue to my second comment.
So I'm curious
Well,
about...
Mr. Tracy had his hand up. Maybe he knows. Did you have?
Help us out.
Are there?
I didn't finish.
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Benton was still talking. I'm
So
sorry.
I just wanted to say there are some software. There's some places out there that have some interesting curricula. It's not a textbook per se.
Sure.
I think it's going to be the way we're going to go in the future. At this point, we don't have 100% student have access to technology at home, so we can't go there yet.
Sure.
We'd have to be providing and we don't have 100% access to all the technologies in the schools as well. We had a brand-new high school. I could see us moving that way. And I say that in the spirit of we need to have the facilities and the equipment in order to do what you're talking about, which I think is a great idea.
I mean, I can think of all sorts of print on demand and
Yeah,
other kinds of ways to do that. But yeah.
Mr. Tracy, you've looked into this.
Well, it's one of those areas that I think a lot of us at the high school tend to dive into because we continue to try and find ways to make things easier, make things more accessible. But what you find on the internet and some of the open source software is you run into problems with reliability. You run into truth or not, and you find yourself in a situation that may or may not be real, given some type of an open source textbook, if you will. The guarantee that we get from publishers is that the things have been vetted to some reasonable consistency, and the alignment to the Massachusetts frameworks is a key piece, along with the addition of, if you look at some of the materials that we have here tonight, the multimedia accessibility, the interaction with video or a project that may be happening related to a particular focus of the book. So I think, certainly I always try and dig up a way to find, something free and something online that can work, but I think you would run into some reliability issues that could cause some pains down the road.
Yeah, I would just suggest we keep pushing on that regard, because regardless of whether it's printed or not, the issue of reliability is always there. We know how big a political issue what actually goes into printed textbooks sometimes becomes. So I'm not sure that is a defining, militating factor one way or the other, especially since I think the content of and what I've seen that's available, just widely distributed and for free, is very, very good, and oftentimes comes with embedded. I mean, it's just getting richer and richer all the time, and I'm sure that there are ways to aggregate the available content out there into some sort of downloadable, usable format. Maybe it's a job for the Massachusetts Department of formerly the Department of Education. I don't know what they keep changing the name. Right?
It's a great challenge, and I think you bring up a great point. I think that, obviously, our technology coordinator is always pushing free things to us, software to us. Neil does a lot of research on it, but right now we don't have the guarantee that all the classrooms have the technology equipment that's needed for a whole class to just use.
Okay, Dr. Quick.
I just want to make a comment to what he was saying. Whereas I try to be environmentally friendly in so many aspects, I do see the benefits of having the textbooks in the fact of, if you have a family, let's say, with 3 kids all trying to get on a computer and a textbook at the same time, and you only have one computer, that presents a problem. Or technology, I don't know about anybody else, but, I'm on a computer and all of a sudden it's gone, or something, to that extent. My husband's going to kill me for saying that, but, sometimes things like that happen. And what if you need to read a chapter by tomorrow? So I see both sides of the coin, but like I said, in this day and age, I don't think we have enough of the capabilities, like I said, for families who have more kids. If everything starts to go computerized, how are things going to get done unless now you have 3 computers in the house? So I see the benefits still of textbooks myself.
Thank you. Anyone else have any? I just had a question on some of the books. I noticed that we have an estimated shipping, 5% shipping, and on others we don't have a shipping charge. I'm wondering how we can get rid of that shipping charge. It's thousands.
My guess is that they're just missing from the others. Dr. McGinn?
Where do you see them missing? If you notice, the only one that's different is Mr. Megacy has placed his shipping cost within each of the, you see it at the top of the 1, 2, 3, 4th column.
Shipping.
Total with shipping. And then,
sorry, I missed
yeah, so
that.
it
I
is
did miss
just a
that.
little bit in a different location.
Yeah, they all have shipping.
What's the percent? For science as well.
5. Yeah, and there's no way to say to them, we can't take it if we have to ship it. You can't go get them. It's a lot of money for shipping. I was shocked, the cost of shipping. That's many classroom sets of books. It's too bad. Mr. Marchese.
Superintendent Benton, you had mentioned that we were going to make this purchase with the hopes of getting stimulus money. Are we going to wait to get the money first before we make the purchase, or are you planning to make the purchase?
No, I can't make the purchase until we have the money.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we're going to wait till we get the money before we make the purchase. Okay.
One of the other things, this is brand new, I think. I haven't seen this before, that for the high school Spanish, there's a custom-made PowerPoint presentation for each chapter.
Yes, that was one of the reasons we liked it. And also, it's the only textbook that has differentiation of instruction, which is very important. They have, you can go on, and Glencoe is coming to train all my teachers on Tuesday. You can go on and you can make 25 different tests by pressing different buttons for makeup or just to take into account that kids have alternative learning styles, and especially in a foreign language where we see that so many students are strong orally, but not so much in the writing, or vice versa. So that was definitely one of the selling points.
That's excellent, and please note that Tuesday is the day after school ends, when all your staff will be here. I just want to make that for the public to know.
I would also like to say that we did not order French, as you could see. And the reason we didn't is because of the illness of our French teacher, who was out for 2 years in the middle school. And we felt that it was not fair to order a French book without a permanent teacher. Since the resignation of this teacher, I'm happy to say, and Mrs. McMenamin and Mrs. Benton will second and third this, that we have recently hired a very dynamic, passionate French teacher for the middle school. So we will be doing curriculum review in French next year with the hope that this teacher will revitalize the middle school program, although the numbers are strong next year for grade 6 and grade 7. So French will be coming in another year or two.
Excellent. And then I did notice among the three that some of them are the completion of your cycle. They're at different stages here, but social studies, the completion of your cycle? There was some science was the completion.
No, science, I'm sorry, science. I'm sorry, I'm looking at Brian, but it was science, yes.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, in honors biology.
Great, so that we can check that one off. And
Right.
And actually, what I was thinking of is social studies out of kilt, but if you see the reason, 15-year textbook, and we are getting complaints from, Brian was teaching.
The geography textbook missed its cycle for whatever reason years ago, and so it's sorely overdue and well-deserving of an adoption.
Excellent. Well, you've done a great job here. This is wonderful. Does anyone have any comments on the curriculum renewal section? And then we'll take a vote on these. I think that's kind of tied in.
I just had one question. Dr. McGinn, you had mentioned in your memo under mathematics, the Impact Mathematics Program, you said in your conclusion, it will be interesting to follow these students as they advance through the Wilmington High School. Will they perform differently from previous classes? Will the high school mathematics teachers recognize these students as differently abled from their predecessors? Is this something that you intend to do and follow and track these kids as they go through?
Certainly, I think it's our responsibility to take a look at the youngsters, and we're all anxious to find out, given the success in the historical increases in student performance at those grade levels, it's also important, I think, for us to take a look at how those youngsters perform, how they've been prepared differently for subsequent coursework, and you know, what have we done to affect the ceiling of student performance in mathematics, and hopefully we've made a difference there that's appearing now, you know, at those middle levels.
Yeah, okay. So you'll have like a little mini study that you're going to be tracking these kids as they go through. Okay,
Yep.
excellent. No, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. That's excellent.
Just to piggyback what Mr. Marquez
Mrs.
said,
Duffy.
we've had at Wilmington Public Schools kind of an issue with some of our middle school math programming, and so it took a while to initiate a new program, and took a while then for determine which program was going to be. And our scores, our MCAS scores, were showing on math to be weak at that time at the middle school, and then they seemed to improve at the high school. So it seemed like there was kind of a jump. So the data is there that shows where we were weak. And then as we initiated new math programming and the teachers all got on board with training and what program they were going to be using and some of the certifications and adjustment in the mathematics department, all those kind of changes have taken place, and we should in the next 2 years, I would think, be able to really look clearly at the data and find that we have made some nice gains with that. But I think a full report will be really nice as we look at over time. I mean, really a 5-year period, I would say, would be the best span for that kind of data and just the different changes throughout that. But our scores in the last MCAS looked better as well.
Which grade levels?
Middle school.
It's like
Yeah.
a staircase. It's a textbook rise
Yeah, so-
from adoption.
Actually, on that note,
Yes.
I have some very exciting news to share. I was contacted by Impact Math, who would like to showcase Wilmington internationally because of the results of our math scores improvement, MCAS scores, and the use of Impact Math at the middle school and our ability to have so many students completing Algebra 1 by the time they enter the high school. So you're going to be hearing more about this as we move forward. It's quite a coup for Wilmington. This is not just for the United States, it's internationally they want to promote.
I need to give a mea culpa then, because I was one of the members of the school committee who was so against this impact math. And I admit it, and I am so glad to be proven wrong. Congratulations. That's
Congratulations to
fantastic.
the middle school teachers. They've done a phenomenal job.
Fantastic. Mrs. Duffy?
Yeah, and I think, we still have, some nice areas we have some areas that have grown, which is definitely you hear from parents as well, as I've had 2 daughters go through the middle school. And, it's a nice balance that the teachers have found because, you still have to do some drill and practice, and they've been able to fit that in along with all of the hands-on and all of the stories and all of the word problems that are now part of mathematics, which is challenging for your computation kids, but we have to get the language in there now. And I think the other thing is that we, now need to put some more of our time and energy in the different learning styles, as Mrs. Beckwith spoke about in the foreign language, because those are the small portion that we still, and most districts still need to help move up. Some of our math learning disabled kids are finding it very challenging still, and so I think we're still at the crossroads of what curriculum's going to be best to help them, but there are some new studies and some new programs coming out that maybe we'll take a look at through the special ed department over the next couple of years and see if we can see some jumps in those scores as well. That would be really nice.
Great. Yes. Oh, thank you. All right. Okay, any more? All right, what we're going to do is we're going to vote on these in each category. So would someone move that we expend
I rounded it off.
Oh, okay. Expend $25,000 from the stimulus grant to purchase social studies textbook adoption. Mrs. Duffy.
Motion to approve the expenditure of $25,000 for from the stimulus money for the adoption of new textbooks.
Do we have a second? Dr. Quick. Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, Trish. Thank you. And secondly, we move to expend $25,260 from the stimulus grant to purchase foreign language textbook adoption. Mrs. Duffy.
Move to approve of $25,259.85 from the stimulus money for the approval of the foreign language textbooks.
Do we have a second? Mr. Higgins. All those in favor? Thank you. And our third one is science. Okay. We'd move to expend $29,513.58 from the stimulus grant to purchase the science textbook adoption. Mrs. Duffy.
Motion to approve of $29,513.58 from the stimulus money to purchase the science textbooks.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Marchese? Okay, all those in favor? Okay. Thank you all for all the hard work you put into choosing your textbooks and for coming tonight. We appreciate it. So now we'll just keep a watch on that grant and hope it comes in soon.
be
Thank
available
you.
July 1st.
Oh, okay, great. Excellent. Okay. Next, we have summer school programs. Middle school program, a high school enrichment program, and a high school summer school program.
Yes, and I apologize that I didn't bring this last month. That's my fault. This is a request for approval to once again offer summer school programs to students in grades 6 through 12. Programs are designed for students who need the opportunity for makeup or remedial, and in some cases for enrichment instruction. And they're all conducted at the high school. The cost of the tuition is actually the cost of running the program.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Marchese?
Superintendent Benton, if we don't approve this, I'm sure that we're not, I'm sure that we will approve it. If we didn't, how many kids would be kept back, not getting this instruction that they need?
Mr. Tracy, I'm going to need some help with that. What is your estimate of how many students at the high school need to take courses, summer courses? Will participate in this summer program?
Just at the high school, the two high school pieces, I would say anywhere from 40 to 60 kids, and it could be just for lost credit. It could be a student who needs credit for graduation. Sometimes it's an issue where a student just really blew a course and they want to make it up and get out of the way so they can continue on in their transition, so.
And at the middle school, Ms. McMiniman?
I would say for making up of credit, that would be the only reason the middle school kids would be attending. I would say between 20 and 25 students across all 3 grades.
Any other questions? Okay, could I have a motion to approve the request to operate the 2009 summer school programs? Mr. Marchese?
I make a motion to approve the request to operate the 2009 summer school programs.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Higgins? Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous, Trish. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, award of bids.
You could acknowledge Mr. Ruggiero.
Mr. Ruggiero.
3 bids.
Good evening. In front of you, you have copies of 3 memos for the award of bids for copy paper, office supplies, and school supplies. If we start with copy paper, we went out to bid. We received 3 bids. The vendors are listed on your document. WB Mason was the low bidder at $25.38 a case, which is actually about $1.78 less than what they had quoted us last year, about 6.6% reduction in the per case price. You also note in the memo that we're ordering about almost 400 fewer cases of paper in this coming school year than we did the previous school year, part of our attempt to go green. So I'd recommend that WB Mason be awarded the paper bid for the 2009-10 school year.
We'll take these one at a time, so that'll be good. Thank you. Could we have a motion that WB Mason, and then we'll talk about it. I'm just going to make the motion. Then we'll talk. Oh, are you making the motion?
No, I had a question.
Okay, we're going to do a question in a second.
Okay.
A motion that WB Mason be awarded the paper bid for the 2009-2010 school year. Mr. Higgins.
I recommend that WB Mason be awarded the paper bid for the 2009-2010 school year.
And a second. Dr. Quick. Any questions or comments? Mr. Marchese.
Mr. Ruggiero, I'm assuming that the paper that I can provide is going to be recycled paper?
That's correct.
Yes. Very good. Go green.
I would expect that to come from Mr. Vail. Now he's...
That was my question. Well, I was going to ask for future reference that he put the content of post-consumer recycled content in the memo for each of the bids. But the second question, if I may, is this an item that's not available on some kind of state blanket contract? Is there a reason for going out for bid in this manner?
My understanding, we've always gone out to bid for these type of this item, so we continue that practice. And they are on the state bid list of WB Mason.
Do we know if the cost we're getting from the bid is less than what's available through a state blanket?
I do not know for sure that, but I would
assume it
I would
is.
assume it
We can
is.
find out.
I mean, we can find out. but-
Mr. Vail.
Mr. Marchese?
I'm sorry. Mr. Vail, could you just explain more what you're talking about, the state blanket? I don't,
My understanding is the state has pre-negotiated standing purchase prices for typical products that it's with a designated vendor, and you don't need to go out to bid. You could just purchase it off the blanket because it's already been
But you
preset.
have a policy. The Wilmington School Committee has a policy on bids. So that's why we do go out to bid. Now, we can change that policy, but there's a policy on it.
Mrs. Duffy?
Yeah, but the state law supersedes local policy, and I believe that's part of, is that part of the 30B, I don't know, is that part of 30B? Do you know, Mr. Ruggiero? They provide the preferred vendor list. I think you can always, you could always go to the preferred vendor on that list, but going out, we get more options for it to be even lower than what's on any of the vendors on the state preferred vendor list. But you said this one that we are chosen as the lowest bid is one of the state preferred vendors, so they have to keep it within that cost. All of the ones on, they have to do that.
Yeah, I'm only just commenting, if I may, because, well, I've only been on the committee a short time, and we've approved, I've been asked to vote and approve all kinds of bids, but they've been very specific. They've been for out-of-state trips and other kinds of things. This is the first kind of commodity item that I've been asked to vote on, and I'm sort of wondering, why wasn't it just gotten off the, state preset price or something, so.
That's a good question. Mr. Marchese?
I think just need to do some clarification whether the state has set preferred vendors or if there's actually a set pricing. And I think that's a clarification that everyone needs. I think it's pretty clear that the vendors are on the preferred vendor list, but we don't know if there's a set pricing out there or if that's even available. So I don't think there is, personally, but I'm sure there's a vendor list, but I'm sure specific pricing, because that all depends on quantity, I'm sure. How much the school's going to order or whatever's going to order.
Mrs. Benton? We
Mr.
could
Ruggiero?
find out.
Okay, well, let's put together
We'll
a
put something
little
together.
packet, informational packet for everyone. It's a good,
A learning packet. We can get a learning packet on purchasing.
Okay, Mr. Vail?
I know that the state, in conjunction with all this, also has environmentally preferred products and services as part of a section of their state blanket. So they've, in addition to pre-negotiating quantities and prices and other kinds of things, they've designated certain, whatever it might be, cleaning supplies or on and on, as being on the EPP, the environmentally preferred products list.
Right.
All right, so that would be great.
Good
We'll have a-
question. But we do use the environmental preferred products. I know that for a fact. All right, we'll get that
Okay.
information.
And so we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor of awarding the paper bid to WB Mason, raise your hand. Thank you. Unanimous, Trish. Okay, our second one, Mr. Ruggiero? Office supplies, I think?
Second document you have in front of
Oh,
you,
school supplies.
I was going to do office supplies, if that's okay?
Sure.
Is that office supplies? We received 6 bids. One company didn't bid on over 85% of the items, so we excluded them. So you see listed 5 bids. In addition, we had 2 companies that sent in a no bid, a document saying they weren't going to bid. As you can see by the costing, WB Mason was the low-cost bidder. So I recommend WB Mason be awarded the office supply bid for the 2009-10 school year.
Okay, I'd accept a motion that the school committee award the office supplies contract for 2009-2010 school year to WB Mason. Mr. Marchese?
I make a motion that the school committee award the office supplies contract for 2009-2010 school year to WB Mason.
Do we have a second? Dr. Quick, any comments, questions?
Absolutely.
Mr. Marchese?
Just a quick question, Mr. Ruggiero. All the supplies, this is for all the schools for the whole school year? Everything?
Correct.
Just comment that I think it's a good price. I mean, my office spends more than this, and we're a lot smaller than Wilmington schools, so this is good.
One of the things I was fascinated by was on the last page, 60 and 61 on transparent tape and masking tape. And two of the companies are hundreds of dollars over the other companies for masking tape and regular tape. I just find that very curious.
Yeah, we had looked at this in detail because sometimes they bid a little bit differently,
Right.
but,
But they
it's what
basic-
they have the same document, the
Right.
same bid document, they know what we asked.
One of
for.
them basically lost it because of tape. I think that's, it's like, wow. Interesting. Okay, we have anyone else? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous, Trish. And the last one. School supplies.
School supplies, we actually received 5 bids and 2 no bids. The same 2 companies didn't bid. Of the 5 bids, 2 of them we excluded because they didn't bid on over 85% and 65% of the items respectively. So of the 3 remaining companies, again, WP Mason came in the low bidder. So we recommend that the school supply contract for the 2009-10 school year be awarded to WB Mason.
Okay, I'll accept a motion that the school committee award the school supplies contract for 2009-2010 school year to WB Mason. Dr. Quick.
I recommend that the school committee award the school supplies contract for the 2009-2010 school year to WB Mason.
And do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Marchese. Any questions or comments on this one? No? All those in favor? Unanimous, Trish. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ruggiero. All right. We're at the end. Okay. Delegations. Any delegations? Yes, Mrs. Ingram.
Hi. I actually have 2 things. I came tonight with 1, but now I do have 2. First, I'd like to give a great big huge kudos to Karen Strazzeri and her wonderful team that safely took our children to and from their 8th grade field trip to Pennsylvania. They did a phenomenal job, and I'd just like to publicly acknowledge all of the hard work and efforts that they put into that. So thank you, and thank you to all of you for allowing that to happen for the students of Wilmington again. Secondly, I came tonight, as part of the reason I was here, was the approval of an out-of-state field trip for the Strings Attached Orchestra to Austria. And I apologize, I had to be a mother before I got here and get dinner on my table, so I wasn't here for it, but I did ask what happened, and I was told that it was tabled. I know that we had tried to have this on the agenda 2 weeks ago, but the trip was bounced back because of a new policy of putting out to bids. I took the time while I was here to look through the packet, and I noticed there is a packet of bids for both the Canada trip as well as the Strings Attached trip. I also noticed on both of them, it's recommended that the bid be awarded. I'm a little confused as to why the Austria trip was dropped from the agenda. I'm very grateful that there are some students having this opportunity to travel to Canada, but I'm just curious as to why the Strings Attached trip was tabled from this meeting.
It wasn't actually tabled, Mrs. Ingram. The superintendent chose not to bring it forward tonight. It's 2 years from now, so if there was any, whatever the superintendent's reason, that we'll put it on, it will be on another agenda.
I can
But
answer,
she'll-
I can respond to it, because
Okay,
it
Mrs.
came to
Benton.
my attention right before the meeting that we didn't properly do, it came to my attention right before the meeting that we didn't properly do the bid correctly because of the total amount of the cost of the trip.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you said. I'll try again.
It came to my attention before the meeting that we didn't properly do the bid on this trip, so we need to redo it.
Okay. The bids were done incorrectly, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, board members' questions and comments. Mrs. Duffy.
No, like Mrs. Ingram said, I would like to thank the middle school staff and students. I did hear that the behavior was very they behaved very well on the trip. Some of the students I heard from had an excellent time, and the staff for doing a good job of supervising and
all of that for the trip. To our sports teams as well, wrapping up the end of the year. I think they had a very good spring, and the kids seemed to enjoy themselves. And I think we've had a very productive year as a school committee and a lot of new changes. So we'll be reviewing a lot of policy this upcoming year, but that's always a good thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Marchese?
Yes, first and foremost, congratulations to the class of 2009 and to Mr. Tracy for doing a phenomenal job in expressing that all the way through. So you did a great job in graduation. It was absolutely fun. I enjoyed it. It was actually great. I just want to remind everybody that this year that the school program is now entertaining the Wildcat 2009 Summer Sports Clinic. So registration is still open, and registrations are still open up until the first day of the event, and starts off with boys and girls basketball. And from what I'm hearing, they're filling up quick, so please do get involved. And there's basketball, football, field hockey, all types of sports programs, and boys and girls soccer. So everyone who's interested, please do take a look at it. From what I'm hearing, this is going to be blasted out to all the schools on Friday, so do sign up. It's a great program. And that's it.
Thank you. Dr. Quick?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, Mr. Vail?
Can I ask my dumb question for the evening?
There is
Well,
never
actually,
a
this
dumb
might be
question,
my,
as
no,
my teacher used to say.
I probably already asked it, actually, but the high school graduation was terrific, but my question is, it seems like the school year still goes for another week? So the graduation was sort of 2 weeks before the end of the school year?
That's how it
Only for the seniors. The seniors get out early.
I was just very confused.
Yeah, the seniors get out earlier. That's always,
They can graduate.
actually, seniors used to get out 2 weeks earlier than, and that changed.
12 days.
12 days.
12 days now.
The original last day of school. That's the earliest they have to complete 168 days during the senior year.
Okay, so that's state law or policy, whatever. and
State law.
that's the way it's scheduled. Yeah, just because everyone's still going to school and they've already graduated.
They used to do that so they could get a head start on jobs, for summer jobs. It was like a practical reason years ago, and it's just carried forward, I think. Yeah. And anything else, Mr. Bill? No, I don't want to cut you off. Thank you. And I just wanted to thank Mr. Tracy and the high school, and I couldn't help but think also that it's every teacher from kindergarten on who worked to have those kids graduate the way they did. That was an exceptional class. There was not one thing that you wouldn't want them to have done. They were really excellent. And so it was a great weekend. Thank you. And the other part is I want to say thank you I actually went back to my old school today, the first time in 5 years, and it was fascinating to see how many people I no longer know. But they were all working. And so I just want to say into June, for all the teachers who continue working, and, the nursing staff and all the other staff, we're kind of on a download. It is like, Mr. Vail, that when the seniors leave, you kind of think it's over, but it's not over for the rest of the school system, and everybody's still plugging along and doing their thing, and I think that's commendable. So thank you to our staff and everybody who works so hard, our administration, et cetera. So thank you. No other reports, correspondence, Dr. Quick?
No, none tonight.
Tonight, okay. Future meeting dates and agenda items. I know that there are at least 2 people who were not able to make our second meeting in June. And since we've really wound up a lot of what we have to do, we're not going to schedule that one. We will schedule a meeting in July for July 8th. July 8th. And then, as we usually do, we only have one meeting in July and one meeting in August, so we're planning on August 26th, which would be the week, this year it's the week before school begins. School begins September 30th, August 30th. So our 2 meetings this summer will be July 8th and August 26th.
August 31st. I think it's the 31st, isn't it the 31st?
Am I totally wrong?
August
Okay.
31st.
August 31st, okay, first day of school. It's late this year. Okay, any other? We're all set? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Duffy.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Quick, thank you. All those in favor? Good night. Thank you.